For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old, beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash.
Hello and welcome to Trash to Thrash. I'm Mark Murray and this is episode 20, the season 1 finale. For 20 weeks now I've been coming to you every Thursday with guitar restorations, and I've rebuilt over 20 guitars in the last 20 weeks. Crazy. This week I'm coming at you finishing off 4 guitars that I started over the last couple months that I never ended up finishing. A Jackson Rhodes, a Jackson Kelly, a Roswell, and an Ibanez Pro Line Flying V. All 4 of these guitars have crazy paint jobs on them, they're super modded up, and none of these guitars are customer guitars. These are all Guitar Guts custom shop builds, which means normally they'd be for sale, but these 4 guitars here are going to be given away to you. That's right, I'm giving away these 4 guitars. Be sure to keep watching this episode to find out how you could win one of these 4 guitars. I want to say thanks so much to everybody who's been watching the channel, who has helped spread the word, told their friends about the show. The show has grown a ton over the last 20 weeks. The YouTube channel is exploding, and I really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much for all your support. If you want me to rebuild your guitar, email me, mark@guitarguts.com. I also put my information down in the description below. Send me an email and we can talk about a custom guitar for you. All right, now let's jump on into the first guitar. It's a 1994 Jackson Concept Rhodes, a guitar I actually bought for myself over 15 years ago.
First up today, we're going to be looking at this 1994 Jackson Rhodes Concept. I bought this guitar about 16 years ago in 2005 to play on stage with my band Luckdown. The Jackson Concepts were made in the early 90s in Japan and were great guitars with lightning-fast maple necks. This is another 94 Jackson Rhodes Concept that I built for a customer a few years back. I'm going to be building this next one similar to this one with the stripe pattern, but it's going to have a very unique twist on it. Even in this beat-up form, I still think this was a really cool guitar. Years ago, inspired by Unearth, I had written Kill and covered it in tape on the top horn. This guitar features a red EMG 81 pickup and a cheap matching kill switch in red. This guitar has a real junkyard feel to it. I mounted the 9-volt battery in the neck cavity to give it an Eddie Van Halen kind of vibe. Although the guitar's really beat up and trashed, it still sounds awesome and it plays really good. So this is the perfect kind of candidate for a trash to thrash guitar. I sprayed it teal and purple. Someone had used these colors together on a mock-up I saw online and I loved it. So I decided to try it, but with the crazy stripes like I did on the 2 Tiger Rhodes. Then I simply apply the pattern onto the guitar and go spray it. And while it did turn out pretty cool, I don't like the way that I created the striping on this guitar. It's got too much of a tribal-y feel to me, and it's not really what I was going for. I really like the stripes on these 2 Rhodes much more. So I stripped the guitar back down and painted it teal and purple once again. And now it's on to adding black stripes back onto it, but a little more like the other Tiger Rhodes I've done before. So I laid out a piece of tape on the table and hand drew out the lines. Then I used an X-Acto knife to trace out the lines. I pulled them up and then transfer them over to the body of the guitar. This guitar has teal and purple going back and forth over the whole top of the guitar, and the spots where the 2 colors overlap are my favorites. So I'm placing the tape over these bursted areas, so those are going to be what's preserved by the tape, and the spots left uncovered will be painted black. After it's looking good, it's time to go into the spray booth. Last time I just did black stripes, but this time I decided to do metallic black with gold and kind of a purplish flake to it. I used Perfect Match paint by Duplicolor. It's actually the metallic black that you'd see on a newer Volkswagen. And here it is unwrapped. To me, this looks so much better than before. I really didn't like it before, and now I'm totally into this finish. Left is the new finish, and the right side is the old finish. The old finish had a much more tribal-y look to it and just looked kind of weird to me. I never liked it, but I like the sharpness of the left. What do you guys think? Do you have a preference, or is it no big deal? Do they both look pretty cool to you? Let me know down in the comments below what your opinion is on this guitar. Now that the paint job's looking awesome, it's time to seal it all in with some nice clear coat. I sprayed on 7 coats with a polyester top coat from Henson. It looks great. I can't wait to see this thing fully put together. The black chrome hardware is going to look really good against this, especially with the metallic black striping. Now that we're all caught up, let me show you what else we've done to it lately. We'll continue looking at the headstock. Look how chipped and damaged the end of this headstock is. It's pretty trashed. So I cut a piece of hard oak wood about 1/4 inch in each direction bigger than it really needs to be. Then I glued this piece onto the headstock as shown. My shop assistant Ryan's really good at this kind of stuff, and he has all the proper tools for it. So he brought it to the belt sander and started leveling out this new piece to match the original headstock. Then he smoothed it out with some files and did some final sanding with a palm sander. And this is what I'm talking about. Look at this. He did such a good job on it. You can't even feel the transitions with your hand anymore. Looks great. So now it's Monday. I'm going to try to get some paint on this thing tonight, then stripe it up, throw some black paint on it tomorrow. Maybe by tomorrow night I can get the clear on it, and by Thursday morning, right before you guys watch this video, I can get it leveled, sanded, and assembled just in time for the season finale. This is going to be like the last thing to be finished. So that's the plan, to get some color on it now, leave it to dry overnight, and it's looking awesome. And now do some more striping for the headstock, and I was out in the paint booth at 5 a.m. spraying the black on the headstock. I let that dry for about 12 hours and then applied a new logo. Of course, then it was time to throw some clear over it. And after sanding and polishing the headstock, look at that. The stripes match the body and it looks really good. But this thing needs to be refretted, so it's time to start that. I'm using StewMac's tallest, widest fret material for this guitar, and here I'm bending the fret wire to match the radius of the fretboard. Then I start cutting up the fret wire into individual pieces that are going to become each fret. I'm pretty sure I already cleared out these fret channels, but just in case, I'm going to clean them out one more time using this StewMac tool. I use a nice light-duty hammer to set these frets in place. Then I bring it over to the press and press them in. Of course, when you do this, you need to have the right tools in your press, something that's going to have the same radius that you just bent your frets to, that's going to match the fretboard. Now I'll cut the ends down to the end of the fretboard. I have this specialized file here that cuts the ends of the frets down to a nice angle. Then the final step is to round the ends of the fret over. For this guitar, I'm using Goto locking tuners in black Cosmo. After assembling the headstock, man, this thing is looking good. And of course, it's on to polishing and buffing. We were really in a crunch to finish these guitars this week, so I handed off a few other responsibilities to Ryan. One of them was to mount all the humbuckers into their mounting rings. For this Jackson Rhodes, we're going to go with the set of EMG 5766 pickups in black chrome. I'll be redoing all the hardware in black chrome, so this thing's going to look super good. I'm going to be replacing the pickguard and the tailpiece of this guitar with clear plastic. When I built the Alien Blood Rhodes a few months back, I made an extra pickguard and tailpiece in case I needed one for a future project, and it's already coming in handy. They weren't completely finished, so I handed them off to Ryan where he trued them up and made all the edges real straight, drilled some extra holes in them, and now the pickguard's ready for some components. On this guitar, I'm going with a Tessie kill switch, purple anodized metal with a purple LED. As far as the controls, it's just going to be a typical 3-way pickup selector switch and a single volume knob. Now that the pickguard's all wired up and the neck is all prepared, the body's been sanded and buffed, it's time for final assembly. And look at this thing. It turned out even better than I expected. This guitar has been through so much, it's seen so much. Back when I was 17 years old playing this guitar, I would never expected it to turn out this way one day. The purple LED on the Tessie kill switch comes off more pink in this video, but it really pops, really shines, and the purple anodized metal looks awesome on it. Underneath the clear pickguard, you can also see that I custom painted the battery to match the guitar. It's a very over-the-top and flashy guitar, but it's exactly what I love. What do you think? Would you play a guitar like this? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, I told you guys the guitars on this episode weren't going to be for sale and they're going to be given away. Let me explain that a little more in detail for you guys.
When I first started this show, the idea was to go out, find beat up old gear, fix it up, and then flip it for profit. But the 4 guitars on this episode, I am not selling. I'm giving them away to you guys. So if you want to win one of these guitars, head on over to my Patreon page. There's a link down in the description to that page, patreon.com/guitarguts. On there you'll see there's 3 different tiers. If you join the CEO tier, which is $10 a month, you're going to be entered every month into a drawing to win one of these guitars. I'm going to keep this going for at least 4 months, But if this keeps growing and you guys are loving it, I'll keep it going indefinitely. Anyone who signs up for the CEO tier is going to be automatically entered every month to win one of these guitars. There will be other ways, no purchase necessary to enter the contest, so follow my Instagram at GuitarGuts for details on that. If this keeps going, I'm going to throw in the Stealth Kelly and the Stealth Frankenstrats. I've got a couple other Frankenstrats around, and I'll keep building custom guitars to give away every month. I have 3 tiers on my Patreon page, and the first 2 tiers offer things like ad-free versions of this show, exclusive bonus content, and an opportunity to be in a monthly super collab with me and the other patrons. But for $10 a month, you get all that, plus a chance to win a guitar that's valued at over $1,000. Good luck, and I hope to see you over there on the Patreon page. Now don't worry, Trash to Thrash is still going to be here on YouTube, but it's going to continue to have ads. And for as little as $3 a month, you get the ad-free versions of this show and some extra bonus content. Alright, this next guitar turned out so awesome. When I was first offered this guitar, I wasn't sure if I wanted to buy it because it wasn't something I was really familiar with. But after looking into it a little bit, I knew it would be a really fun project, and it was. And it turned out really awesome. So now let's get into a guitar that made its debut on episode 9 of this show, the Ibanez Pro Line 1660 Flying V.
This is a 1985 Ibanez Pro Line 1660 Flying V. This guitar came to me through a fan of the show, who originally bought this guitar to rebuild himself, but just never got around to it. It had been sitting in a case for years, and he thought it would be a great project for me. So he reached out to me to see if I wanted to buy it off him. Well, if you've watched this show long enough, you know that I'm a sucker for buying awesome gear like this, and this would be a perfect guitar for me to rebuild on the show, so I accepted his offer. In 1985, the Pro Line series were Ibanez top guitars. The Pro Line series featured oil finish necks, flat radius fingerboards, and custom finishes. They were designed with help from top professional guitarists. The Pro Line series only lasted for 2 years before they were discontinued in 1986. This guitar features an alder body with bolt-on construction, a one-piece maple neck with 22 frets, and an ebony fretboard, and a Pro Rocker floating tremolo. From what I hear, these are great bridges. It's missing a couple parts, but if I can find the replacements, I'll definitely keep it on here. The finish on this guitar is a really cheap stenciled airbrush, definitely not original, and that's definitely not wood grain. So I'm going to be refinishing it with a black finish with white crackle over it. Of course, I'll color match the headstock, and then upgrade the tuners to some Goto tuners. Then I'll be upgrading the pickups to a set of EMG 81X and 60X pickups. This one's going to get an Iron Age LED kill switch, and a brand new clear pickguard. Now I'll hand this guitar off to my shop assistant Ryan, and he'll disassemble it and get it sanded down for me. There wasn't a ton of extra body work to do, but there was definitely some. I mean, this is a guitar from 1985 and it's a Flying V. Every Flying V that I pick up used, especially ones from the 80s and the 90s, have completely trashed corners. So I rebuilt them back up and then sanded them down, and now it's ready for some paint. Now the first step for this finish is going to be to paint the guitar gloss black. For the crackle to react correctly, you need to lay down a few coats of base. In this case, it's going to be black, and this is the color that you're going to see come up through the cracks. As per the instructions, I laid down 3 coats of gloss black. Then you let the gloss black set for 45 minutes. At the same time, I also sprayed the headstock. Then I went back to the body and sprayed on the white crackle paint. I use Montana Crackle for this, and you can click a link to Amazon down in the description below to get this same paint. It's a little tricky working with crackle paint because you need to lay it on pretty thick, but you don't want to run over parts you've already ran over that are starting to dry. So you really need to find a sweet spot between moving too quickly and too slowly. And now let's watch this thing crack. This is sped up 10 times, so normally this would have been about 2 minutes, but we're seeing it at about 11 seconds. And when we look close, it looks awesome. This thing looks kind of like a marbled finish almost. I've done quite a few test crackles on some test bodies, but this is only the second one that I've done for production. This is actually really cool because this is the opposite of the V250 that I did in episode 18 with black and white. This is white with black. And of course, I got to do the headstock, which again, we'll watch in 10 times speed. Watching it live in person, you get both nervous and excited. It's kind of like doing a splatter paint job where you can't wait to see the results because it's going to give a lot of character to the guitar. Like I said, this is at 10 times speed, so as I was standing there watching this in real life, this was about 2 minutes, but then I left and came back about a half hour later, and it looked like this. way more cracked up. This looks awesome. I made a new logo for the headstock using my vinyl cutting machine. I actually took a picture of the original one and cut it out because it's a little bit different than the other Ibanez logos I've seen. There was some real small print that says Pro Line series. This actually took forever and was really hard to get my vinyl cutting machine to cooperate because the print was just so small and it's really not made to do stuff this tiny, but after a few tries I made it happen. Looking good so far. And after 6 coats of clear, this thing is nice. The clear laid on real thick. While I was at it, I sprayed the clear on the body too. So now the body and the headstock are pretty much ready to go. They're going to need some level sanding and polish, but for now I'll let them dry. In the meantime, I'm going to work on the pickguard. Like the Rhodes I showed you earlier, I'm going to be going with the clear pickguard on this one, and I cut it using a bandsaw. The bandsaw is a little tricky because it does tend to wander a little bit, so you have to go really slow when cutting something like this. After cutting out the basic shape, I made the markings for the holes and I handed it off to Ryan once again. He trued up all the edges, drilled the holes, and countersunk the mounting holes. Wiring a pickguard's a little easier than wiring in an actual guitar because it's just out on the bench. You don't have to reach your fingers inside the guitar. It's a lot easier to access things with your soldering iron or whatever else. This one will have a single volume knob, a 3-way pickup selector switch, an iron age kill switch with a white LED, and on this one, the output jack is actually mounted on the pickguard. I love these clear pickguards. I don't think they're for every guitar, but for a guitar like this, it just looks so cool. After letting the clear dry for a few days, it's time to level sand and polish. I took care of the body, and Ryan took care of the headstock. This is the bridge that came on the Ibanez Pro Line. It's called the Pro Rocker, and it's a floating tremolo. From what I hear, these are great bridges. I can tell this thing needs to be intonated, everything's really loose on it, and it's old, but flipping it over the other side, I can see a little bit more of how this thing works. The strings actually feed through the bottom, these holes, and come out up on top. So it doesn't use any type of blocks like a Floyd Rose bridge. But it does have some similarities to a Floyd Rose, like these fine tuners here. It's missing one of the original fine tuners, and I couldn't find parts for this thing anywhere. But I did find replacement fine tuner screws for a Floyd Rose, and I could see the fine tuner for the low E was already swapped out with one for a Floyd Rose. But after trying to put the Floyd Rose one into this bridge, it actually didn't fit. The Floyd Rose fine tuner was a bigger diameter screw. So for now I'm going to just have to use the ones that came in it until I can find a replacement set. Luckily it's still functional, and it should be a real easy swap once I do get the replacements in. To make this thing really shine, it's time to now level sand it and polish it. Now all that's left to do is to mount the pickguard and the neck, string it up, and here we have the Ibanez Pro Line 1660 Flying V. Man, what a difference with this guitar. When I first showed this guitar back on episode number 9, so many people said I shouldn't refinish it because the wood grain on the guitar was so beautiful, or that the original paint job was so rare. But this paint job wasn't the original paint job at all. This is actually some cheap paint job that somebody did with a stencil and an airbrush. I didn't like it at all, and I knew that Crackle or something cooler would make this guitar look way better. What do you think? Did you like the original paint job? Or do you think this Crackle looks way better? Tell me down in the comments. The white LED on the kill switch matches the paint beautifully, and the EMG pickups with the classic finish match this guitar really well. I'm super happy with the way this guitar came out. The black and the white theme looks so good. This is definitely a guitar I would want in my arsenal.
I originally started the Ibanez Pro Line about 2 months ago on episode 9, all about Japanese guitars. I love Japanese guitars. They make great parts for guitars, great craftsmanship, and this next guitar is also from Japan. It's the Crackle Kelly, and it also made its debut on episode 9.
This here is a 1996 Jackson Kelly KE3 with a flame maple top. I love flame maple tops, but this guitar is really damaged, and once I start adding filler onto this guitar and sanding it to repair it, it'll be unsalvageable, so we're just going to have to paint over it. The body of this guitar is made out of poplar. The neck is a maple neck with a rosewood fretboard. This Japanese-built guitar has 24 frets and Jackson's famous shark fin inlays. When set up right, these 90s Japanese Jacksons were amazing guitars. I got this guitar so cheap because if you look, it's pretty trashed. The bridge has mismatched parts. There's a giant screw just filling one of the holes. There's extra holes drilled in the body. The pickup ring is trashed. There's no neck pickup, and the body's got a lot of repairs needed. Ryan did the initial sanding of the body and head, then he gave it back to me and I filled in all the cracks and chips and sanded it level. Then I gave it a nice base coat of white so I could see if it needed any more repair or if it was ready for some color. At this point it did get a little more repair, but I fixed all that stuff and then sprayed on some red and orange. I want this guitar to have a lava type of effect, so I'm going back and forth layering red and orange in different ways so that when the crackle goes on, it's going to have bursts of orange and red throughout the whole thing. When I painted the headstock, I did the same thing, just layered some orange and red back and forth so that the crackle's going to give it a really cool molten lava look. 45 minutes later, I laid on the black crackle. It can sometimes take 30 to 40 minutes for the full crackle to come through, but you can see in this sped up clip how it's looking. After about an hour, this is what we have. Now that looks wicked. The plan worked perfectly as far as the orange and red went. It fades back and forth seamlessly with a very clean burst. This is pretty much exactly what I was going for with the lava look. Now it needs a nice fresh Jackson logo, so I printed one up on my vinyl cutter and installed it on the headstock. And threw some clear over all that, and look at that, this thing is looking awesome. Now going back to the body, here's when I added the crackle onto it. And the crackle turned out pretty cool in my opinion. The back of the guitar looks great, but here to the left of the volume knob you can see there's some weird wrinkling in the finish. With the crackle paint job you can't really just sand down one section and repaint it. There's a pattern going on that's not going to match up. So I should have known there to sand it back down and refinish it. But I continued on and sprayed some clear over it, thinking maybe there's a way I can still save this when I add clear and level sand. But after adding the clear, you can see that the wrinkles are really deep still. So I sanded it all back down level, did a little bit of touch up, sprayed some clear on, and it didn't look good. So I sanded it back down and refinished it. I actually even found a little better of a color even, this more fiery orange that I added into the mix. It actually came out better the second time around. So then I added the crackle back over it again, and the crackle came out even better than it did on the first time. This thing looks killer. I added some more clear back over this new crackle pattern. I level sanded and polished it out. And as I was sanding that one spot where the paint wrinkled, I could see that it was coming back through, that it went through the clear coat. And then it started to go down through the crackle coat, and you could see that blotchy spot there where all the red is.
You know, things don't always go as planned, and this happened because I rushed the guitar. I wanted to have it ready for episode 20 here, and I should have taken a little more time and prepped it better. But I didn't, and I have a huge problem here. So I'm going to actually hand this guitar off to my shop assistant Ryan, have him sand it back down, and I'm going to respray it and restart it. You know, I had a couple of options after this happened. I could have reliced it a little more and sold it off as a relic Crackle Kelly. I could have made a pick guard to cover that spot, but I had a vision for this guitar and I want it to look how I planned. Be sure to follow my videos, my YouTube channel here, and you'll see me working on this thing, I'm sure. But for now, this thing is not going out like this. When you build custom guitars, each one's basically an experiment. You're putting things together that don't normally come together on a stock guitar, and you run into stuff like this. You know, the Kelly was coming out so awesome and it's a huge disappointment, but at the end of the day, it's really only about a month delay. I can sand it back down, respray it. Most of the time in there is going to be waiting between coats of paint to dry before clearing and before sanding and all this stuff. So it's not a ton of work to get it back to where it was, but it is disappointing because it was coming along so awesome. The game plan is going to be the same for it. It's still going to be the cracked lava look, and I'm still going with the same style colors and everything like that. But I'm just going to go with a thicker clear and to make sure that I fill in those cracks a little better. Now let's get into one that did come out nearly perfect, the Roswell.
A few years ago, I bought this Jackson Roswell replica off eBay. It's just a body, unfinished, routed for a single humbucker and a Floyd Rose. The first thing I did to it, of course, was drilled a hole for the kill switch, using a 5/8 inch Forstner drill bit in my drill press. Then I brought it over to the paint booth and laid down the base color, flat black. Next I sprayed on the purple sparkle color, and over the black it looks so awesome. For a guitar with a space feel like this, I had to go with an awesome color like this. And of course I color matched the headstock. For the Roswell, the original ones had a different type of headstock, but I really like the classic pointy Jackson headstock, so that's what I'm going with for this guitar. Once again, I used my vinyl cutting machine to make a new logo for this guitar. And originally I tried a silver one because I thought with the chrome hardware a silver logo might look really cool. But it kind of came out a little dull, and I ended up removing it and put a white logo on, which pops way more on this headstock. Then I took the body and the neck next door to the paint booth and sprayed the clear on them. Then of course I level sanded it, polish sanded it, and buffed it out. And that gloss is looking nice. Look at this thing. I'll need to go through and detail the pickup route and the bridge route because compound and polish got built up in the corners there. Now when I went to go set this guitar up, there was a couple little issues. First of all, the Jackson neck didn't fit into the neck pocket of this body. A Jackson neck is slightly wider than a standard guitar neck, so I completely forgot that this was an aftermarket body and it wasn't made for a Jackson neck. So I took out the Dremel and I widened the neck pocket. But that got me thinking, what's the scale length on this body? Is it a 24 3/4 or is it a 25.5 inch scale length? Is it made for 22 frets or 24 frets? So I set the neck into the neck pocket and realized I'm going to have to reset the neck in a different position so I can get a 25.5 inch scale length on this guitar. For this I used a Bosch 1 horsepower router. It's a much more powerful tool than the Dremel, and I'm going to be removing quite a bit more material than just widening the neck pocket. So the router was the perfect choice. And after removing the neck about 5/8 of an inch closer to the bridge, it's perfect. 25.5 inches from the nut to the saddle. While I was at this, I painted all the cavities flat black so it looked really nice and clean. Now it's time to finish up some detailing on the body, install the electronics, the bridge, and the neck. Before installing the electronics, I used some copper shielding to insulate the cavity. This guitar has never had electronics installed in it before, so there was nothing ever in there to shield it. My favorite type of shielding to use is copper shielding. So many little things always come up when installing guitar parts, so this output jack won't fit in the plate. We're going to have to drill it out. Now after drilling it out, fits perfectly into the plate, but the plate doesn't fit in the body. The output jack's hitting up against the inside of the cavity, so I'm going to get the Dremel out again and remove some material from inside the output jack cavity. Now this guitar is ready to start being wired up. This guitar is actually going to be the first guitar to receive a Guitar Guts kill switch. Going with the chrome one on this guitar because it's getting all chrome hardware, so of course you got to match it. The control cavity inside this guitar wasn't quite deep enough, so I had to route out a little step for the kill switch to sit down into. And now the body is complete. We just got to attach the neck, string it up, set it up, and this one's ready to go. That chrome EMG 81 looks awesome, and next to a Floyd Rose like that, it just, all the chrome is coming together and just looking so good on this guitar. It's exactly what I was hoping for. It totally has that UFO vibe and just is an awesome guitar. After sanding and polishing the headstock and assembling it, I just love the way the chrome looks with this finish. It exceeded my expectations. This guitar is awesome. The chrome Goto tuners look great on it. It's got an R3 Floyd Rose nut. Like I said earlier, I originally bought this guitar to restore and keep in my own collection so I could have a Roswell. But now I've decided to give this guitar away, so go sign up to my Patreon page if you want a chance to win this thing. All that's left to do now is attach the neck, string it up, set it up, and intonate it. And look at this thing. Gorgeous! This has got to be one of my favorite guitars I've ever done. I love the finish on it. The way that the chrome looks with the glitter finish is just so awesome. The thing just shines. I love the reverse headstock on it. The neck is actually from a 1996 PS4. It's a spare one I had around, so I thought it would be a great neck for this guitar. And normally I'm not a big fan of chrome hardware. I mean, I like it and all, but wow, on this guitar, it just really pops. When I originally planned out Trash to Thrash, I was really only planning on doing 6 episodes for Season 1. And from the beginning, the plan was to have this be the Season 1 finale guitar. Before I started working on this guitar, I thought about it a lot, and I kind of knew that this is the route I wanted to go with the chrome and the glitter paint, but I didn't really know exactly how it was going to turn out, and man, this thing is just, it is stunning. So I must ask, when you look at these 3 guitars side by side, the Roswell, the Rhodes, and the Ibanez Pro Line 1660 Flying V, which one do you like best? The Roswell sparkles with its glitter paint and chrome hardware. The Rhodes is a real attention grabber with its bright colors and black chrome hardware. And the Pro Line V looks both orderly and chaotic with its black and white Crackle. Let me know in the comments which one of these guitars you guys like the best.
Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for all the comments, thanks for all the support. I really appreciate it. I'll be back here July 1st with Season 2 of Trash to Thrash. And remember, you can still get the Guitar Guts pedal and the Guitar Guts kill switch at guitarguts.com. So I'll leave a link down below in the description for that stuff. If you want me to customize your guitar, email me, mark@guitarguts.com. Or if you want to commission me to build you something custom, same thing, mark@guitarguts.com. Remember, if you want to win one of these guitars, go sign up to my CEO tier at Patreon, patreon.com/guitarguts. We have maybe 10 people on there already. That means one of those 10 people is going to win this guitar. The odds are super good. The first drawing for a guitar is going to be for the Ibanez Pro Line V, and it's going to be June 15th. So go sign up. The link is in the description for this video, and good luck. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I will see you very soon on Sunday with the Sunday Morning Shred, and I'll still be posting videos every Thursday here, little previews of what to expect for Season 2, and little things like that. So, see you guys very soon, and rock on, my friends.